This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so in last session, just we started understanding the basics. Just we started understanding about Apex programming language. So this is only with Salesforce. It's not that in some other technology this language is used specific to Salesforce. They are offering this programming language, which is similar to core Java. Okay, so the first thing, the Apex programming language is case insensitive. And at present, we are understanding the different statements which we see on day to day when we see the Apex programs. Once we understand these statements, when we see any program, we can understand why. So people are writing the statements, what's the purpose, all those things will be knowing. And so first, the memory statement. The purpose of this one is, so whenever we did data, either input or output data, right? So we give some input, the program will take that data and apply the logic on that, and it will give some result, right? So to store that data when the program is executing, right? It needs some memory. That memory will be allocated by using the data types. So we have two types of data types: primitive data types, non-primitive data types. Primitive data types, this is the list. So the purpose, how the primitive data type works. So once we define a variable using the primitive data type, directly the value whatever you want to assign, you can assign. It is called by value directly in the memory, what the due to the data type. So what is the memory system allocate into that memory? Whatever the value we assign, that will store. But when we deal with the non-primitive data types, it cannot directly access the data. So it is called by reference. That means only we can assign the location of the data. The data will be somewhere in the memory. The location where the data present will assign. So that we call as call by reference. And after that, we started understanding about different operators, right? Assignment operator to assign the values. That's very straightforward. So we need to know about this unary, so I plus plus, I minus minus. These kind of things we see in the programs. The meaning of this one is it will increment the I value by 1. This one, this will decrement the I value by 1. It is like I equal to I minus 1. So this is a short form. And the binary, we took some example. Ternary operator, it is like a conditional. So when you have a condition, based on the condition is satisfied. So what you want to execute, the condition is not satisfied, what you want to execute. Those things we deal here using ternary operator. Today, the next one. I think someone is not in mute. Once you join, please stay on mute. Otherwise, we will get disturbance. Lucky. So please stay on mute. Okay, so now the other type, arithmetic assignment. Arithmetic assignment operator. So when we say like this, so for example, so when you have multiple, let's say I'm defining integer number 1 is equal to 100, number 2 is equal to 200. So I'm giving the statement like this: number 1 is equal to, right? So plus equal to number 2. So when you see like this, how we need to understand it is the combination of arithmetic and assignment operator. Internally, the meaning of this one is how we need to understand it is number 1 is equal to number 1 plus number 2. That's the meaning. So as a short form, instead of writing like this, as a short form, we write like this. This is a short form. Okay, number 1 is equal to number 1 plus number 2. Instead of this, we give expression like this. Okay, in the same way, instead of plus, you can also keep maybe star, minus, all those things. Okay, maybe if you want to understand how it is going to work. So once we log into Salesforce, okay, again, if you don't have the account, go to developer.salesforce.com. So click on sign up, fill the form, give the proper email address. Once after submitting the form, wait for 10 to 15 minutes. You will get one email. So you can check email and verify, set the password and secret question. Right? And later, day to day to log in, open this website login.salesforce.com. So enter your username and the password. Okay. Once we log into Salesforce, to play with the code what we are writing, so go to the developer console. Click on this gear icon. Click on developer console. Okay, this is the one. So now click on this debug and open execute anonymous window. Like here we can write the questions and we can work how exactly. Okay, maybe this is just copying, pasting here. So now let's print this, right? I know that the meaning of this one is number 1 is equal to number plus number 2. That means 100 plus 200 will be assigned to number 1. The value of the number 1 should be 300. Right? So let's execute. So we check this one so that after executing automatically the log will be
I
open.
think you should give the number 1 there instead of 300.
Sorry, where?
You have given 300 there. I think you have to give number 1, right?
Sorry, yeah. So we need to print the value of the number 1. Yeah. So that should be 300. Okay. So in place of plus, right, you can also give star and all those things. The meaning of this one is number 1 is equal to number 1 multiplied by number 2. Right now the result what we see is you will see 20,000. Right? So like that. Just some examples I'm pasting here for your reference. The next one. Yeah, any questions? So if you don't have any questions, please stay on mute. Okay. The next one is about the relational operators. Relational operators. Okay, so we use these operators for comparison. these operators results in the true or false values. Let's say you want to check the equality to know whether two numbers are same or not, or two values are same or not. Right? Not only number, maybe if you want to check two values are same or not, the time we use this equality, one of the relational operator. Single equal to means assignment. Double equal to means checking the equality, like that. Okay. The next operator, not equal to. So this is one not equal to, less than equal to, greater than equal to. Okay, so these are the different relational operators. Okay, so just understand that one. Okay, so now equal to, it will check whether two values are same or not. So let's play with these things. Okay, so now here, so we have number 100, number 2 200. I'm checking both are same or not. Okay, double equal to number 2. So what would be the result after comparison? It might be true or false. Both are same, it returns true. Both are not same, it returns false. That means it will print the false because both are not same. Right? So execute. Right? False. So like that. Right? So let's say we can add multiple conditions. So let's say I'm checking. Number 1 is less than number 2. Yes. Number 1 is 100 and number 2 200 is correct. This should return true. Right? Here false, here true. Execute. Okay, so it is working. Okay, so now what I want to compare these two conditions, not one condition at a time. I want these two conditions to combine. So when you add two conditions, so you want to end or. So what exactly? Both conditions should be satisfied, or any one of the condition is satisfied, that is fine. So based on the requirement, we need to decide. Right? When we have multiple conditions, right? See here, maybe this is the example for relational operators. So when we have multiple conditions, to combine those conditions, we have a concept called logical operators. Okay, so as part of the logical operators, we have and, or, not, all these things we have. Okay, and or, not. Okay, these are the different logical operators. And, or, not, all these things. Okay, so just understand all these things. Okay, so now in Apex we need to use these things. Okay, so I want to combine the two conditions with end. Right, so what we can do, this is one condition, and I'm adding one more. That means both should be satisfied. Right, on day-to-day also. Right, so when we deal many things, let's say there is a discount, they'll mention some conditions. If all those condition meets, they are going to give the right? So like that here also same kind of way, right? So let's say there are 5 conditions. If any one of the conditions satisfied, they are going to give the discount. Right? So that time we need to keep R. And means everything should be satisfied like that. Okay, so here both conditions are not satisfying, right? 100 is equal to 200. No, false. False and true. 100 less than 200 true. The result will be false because end needs all conditions should be true. Then only the final result will be true, right? We'll be seeing the result as right false. It's like that. Okay, there are different combinations. So let me show you how exactly the different combinations and how it will give the result. Okay, so the possible combinations. So when we deal, right? So what are the possible combinations? Let's say condition 1 true and true. If both are true, what happens? Right? Let's say 1 is true, 1 is false. What should happen? Right? So 1 is false, and so here 1 is true. What should happen? Right? So these are the possible combinations when we deal with the 2 conditions. Right? Either both can be true. One condition might be true, one condition might be false. Maybe first condition might be false and second one might be true, or both might be false. When it is like this, when you apply and, so for which it becomes true, and means everything should be true, then only it becomes true. In all other situations, it becomes false. Right? Same thing we are going to execute now. Okay. So here for us, while printing to know, so which results we are printing. Okay. So I'm keeping a string here, and here I'll say end operator. So while printing in the log, first it will print it, and after that these combinations, it will print. Okay. So now here only we guess it and see what exactly it is going to return. So in the code, if you want to keep the comment // after that, whatever you type, system will take as comment. Okay. Now what I am saying, number 1. Okay. Here so first condition I want to take as true, and we are separating with end, and the second condition true, and finally the result should be true. Okay, in such a way we compare here. So here to satisfy that, okay, now I know 100 not equal to 200 is true, 100 less than 200 true, right? Both are true, and the final result should be true. So that's a combination we are checking. Okay, the next thing, let's say if the second condition is false, I'm checking the number 1 is greater than number 2, 100 greater than 200, no, right? In this case, we know that the second condition is false. Since we are applying the condition, for end condition, both conditions should be true. That's why here it is false. The same way, the next combination, this one first, let's say if this first one is false, so to make it false, both are not equal, so it becomes false. This should become true, 100 less than 200. Okay, so now this combination, for this also the result will be false. Right? And also, I want both conditions should be false, right? both conditions should be false. Okay, this is already false. To make this one false, I'm just giving a condition which won't satisfy. Now these are the combinations. Now when we execute, first it will print it, and after that these values, first we have to see true, remaining false as per what we are dealing here. Okay, so click on execute, click on debug only. We see here true, false, false, false. That's what we are expecting, right? So this is working. Right? Same thing if you deal with the R means if any one of the condition is true, right? Out of two, if anywhere if it finds true, okay, so that time the result of the expression will be true. So like that. Yeah. Anyway, all I'm going to do here, instead of end, I'm going to keep R.
Sir, I have doubt here.
Yeah.
System.debug brackets end operator is there, right? You have mentioned two lines there on the second and eighth, right? Second row
So
and eighth row.
hmm,
Yeah, sir. So why the two lines is mandatory? Like in the quotations you have closed, right?
yeah, those two lines are just for
Hyphen,
style,
hyphen.
just
Sorry,
for
sir.
just for styling I gave, right? It's up to you what you want to give.
Oh,
So
okay. It's not like it's mandatory, like we need to give it like that, right? No, right?
no. So you can, if
Oh,
you don't want to give, don't give, right? So
okay.
inside the single quote, whatever you are typing, that is a string, right?
Okay, sir.
So I am the developer. However, I want to print, I am just giving. I feel that if I give like this, it looks better while seeing in the log. I'm giving like that. Okay.
Okay, it's not like
So
anything code or meaning, right? No, right?
no. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Instead, the main thing is you need to start the single quote and end the single quote. In between, whatever you want, you can type. Okay? That will be taken as a string. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So now this here we are checking with R. R means if any one of the condition is true, the final result will become true. If everything is false, then only it becomes false. Right? So you see all these things printing out. So variable does not exist, number one. So did I miss anything? Okay. So now debug only. Now if we see true, false, we are seeing all these things. Select them. Okay. And also we have not. Not means reverse. Right. So if you want to check for some automatic reverse condition. Okay. For example, the value is true, but how we want to check if it is not true? That time only we want to do something, right? So we say not, and whatever the expression is there, that one. It give the opposite result. For example, if I give not of true is nothing but right, false. Right? It gives false. In the same way, not of false is true. Right? So sometimes instead of checking for is it true or false, we check not true, not false. So that time this will be useful. Okay, when you execute. So if you see, so I gave not true, it became as false. Not false became as true. right? Like that. So that's the um, example for this logical operators. For your reference, I am just pasting here. Okay, so I recommend you to execute these things and see so we are getting the result or not. Okay, so that you'll get some confidence and you can practice the further.
Hi, Srinivas. Quick question.
Yeah.
Can you give like for not operator, can you give like a real life example? Like when would you use that? When the value is true, you're expecting a false.
Yeah. So the thing is, for now we are focusing on the syntax related things, right? So I'm not taking any requirements. Just I'm
Okay.
giving the examples how technically this will work. Okay. So so real life examples. Let's say
I mean,
yeah.
for me, I just want you to explain the not one. I mean, if you want to explain everything, that's up to you. But I understood everything else except the not.
Hmm. So I mean, yeah. The thing is, it's based on which project we work and how we do. Okay. So for example, let's go to some of the tables. So I'm opening one of the application. We have the sales application. Okay, I'm opening opportunity in Salesforce. Opportunity is one of the standard object. That means it is a database table where we can see many records. So I'm opening one of the record. Right, opportunity is nothing but a deal. Sales reps, they work on the opportunity. So what is happening to this deal? There is a space. Okay. So here there are many values. Now the requirement is, okay, they want to apply some logic or they want to update something on this opportunity. If the opportunity stage is not equal to closed one, right?
Okay.
So so this time, I think straightforward we can use not equal to. Okay, so in the reverse situation, sometimes whatever the condition we have, we want opposite of that. Okay, so actually when we take the exact requirement only, it will come up automatically. So when you have some complex example, maybe let me take this one only. So what is the result of this one? True, right? So all I need, so after some enhancement, I came to know this should be false. Whatever condition I have now, if it is opposite to that, then only it should allow to enter into if condition. So what we do, we add this one like this. And we say, okay, when you say, so what will happen? Still we don't know about if. For now, let me print it. In general, it's supposed to give true, but I'm giving the not of whatever the actual condition is there. This is the actual condition.
Yep. Okay, I got it. Yep. I understood what you mean.
This in general results true, but I want opposite of that. Okay, so
Okay.
expression I'm giving with the not, so that this has to give false. Okay, when we deal in such kind of scenarios, okay, we use that. Okay, so here what we need to understand, we are focusing on the technical things, how the code we write, how it behaves. Actual requirements will start. Okay, so we'll be taking the solid requirements which we see in the projects. And okay, yeah. So for now, this is the example for this logical operators. The next one, conditional statements. Okay, so the purpose of the conditional statements. So let's say in the program we have maybe 100 lines. It's not that all the 100 lines will be executed every time. We want to execute, let's say there are 10 lines. You want to execute those 10 lines only if the particular condition meets. Otherwise, you don't want to execute. Right? In those kind of situations, we use the conditional statements. Okay. So there are different types. So mostly we deal with the if conditions. Okay. So for now, so we focus on the if conditions. We also have one more concept called switch. So even though you don't know that, still we can achieve all the requirements with the if condition. First we focus on that. So but if condition also, there are many flavors. Right? On day to day people say simple if, like that. Right? So what is the meaning of this simple if? Right? I'll give example for each one. People say if else, right? And if else if, maybe if series. So when we take if series, what will happen? When we nested if, means inside if condition, if you keep condition, how exactly it will work. So all these are different flavors of the if condition. So let me take few examples for these things. Okay. So let's say same thing here. So what we do, we have two numbers. Okay, so I'm taking if simple if, right? Only one if condition. If this condition is satisfied, it will enter inside and execute. Not satisfied, it won't enter inside. So now I'm just checking number one is equal to number two. No, right? It cannot enter inside. Right? So let's give some positive which will meet the condition. Number one, 100 less than 200 S. So here I'm just printing system.debug. Simply like this, I'm printing number one is less than number two. This is what I'm printing. Okay, so now if this condition meets, then only it will enter inside and print it. The condition is not satisfied, it cannot enter inside. So click on execute. Click on debug only. Number one is less than number two. Right? This is what seeing. Right? Number one is less than number two. So that means it is entered inside this if condition and executed. Right? So this is the example of the simple if condition. Okay, so now we have if else. That means if this condition is not meeting, if you want to execute some other set of statements. Okay, in our example, maybe I added only one statement. It can be multiple statements also. Okay, so if this block, if this if condition is not satisfied, else I want to execute some other set of statements. Okay, we use this else, and here write the statements as per the requirement. Okay, here I am saying we know that if it comes to else, so that means number two might be less than or equal to, right? We also have equal to, right? So for now, I'm just giving the message number two is less than number one, right? So So when it can enter here, so really the number 2 is less than number 1, right? I'm just giving like this in such a way.
Just to change the
Now,
operator, no need of changing the value, right?
yeah, anything. So just this is just a demo, right? You can change the operator also. Okay. So yeah, 1000 less than 200. No, it will be failed, and it will enter into else part, and it will execute. You'll see it is printing number 2 is less than number 1, right? It's correct. It entered here. Okay, now, so what I'll do, in case both are same, right? Let's say we have a situation both are same, what will happen? For this also, as per what we have now, for this also, so what it will do, it will say number 2 is less than number 1, which is wrong, right? Number 2 is not less than number 1. It is equal to number 1, right? So this, okay, so let me first say this. This is the example for this if else, right? We have if condition, if is not satisfied, we execute else part. Okay, but in this example, we are getting this as wrong if both values are same. What I'll do, we have else if, so one of the concept. So if you want to check for multiple conditions, so that time we can keep else if and check for the multiple conditions. Okay, so here I'm introducing else if, and so here I'm checking is number 1 is equal to number 2. Right, I'm checking one condition, right? Number 2 is equals to number 1, right? So that way, so first it will check this, not satisfied. Then it will check this, 100 is equal to 100, yes, it is satisfied. It will enter inside and execute that. Okay, so now let's execute. Number 2 is equal to number 1, right? So it is entered here, right? Like that. Now let me add one more condition just to understand. I'm checking here, is number 1 is equal to 100. Number 1 is equal to 100. This one I'm checking. Now for you the question. So what do you think out of this, which will be printed? Right, you can tell me the line numbers, which debugs might be printed. 100 less than 100, it is not satisfied, so it won't execute. 100 both are same, we know that this execute. Now this will execute or not? Number 1 is 100 only. This is also satisfied. So do you think both will be executed or only one will be?
Both will be executed.
Yeah, so that's what we need to understand here. Okay?
No, right? Once the else if is executed, it after the system debug, the control will come out totally, entire the if statement. So it will not execute the subsequent else if.
Yeah, correct. Okay, so in general, right? So when we start newly, so people are thinking, let's say if this is satisfied, this will execute, and later it will also check and other condition also it will execute. That is wrong. Okay, so out of, even if you keep 10 or 20 else if statements like this, out of all these things, whichever satisfied first, So that will be executed, and later it won't check for the remaining else if conditions. And in this example, here it is satisfied. Okay, so it will execute and it will ignore executing the remaining blocks of code. That's what will happen. Any one of the block out of all this, either if or else if, or this one or this one, none of these things are satisfied, it enters into else one. Not like everything will be executed one after the other. That I want you to understand. So now let's say my requirement is I want like that only. So if this is satisfied, this should execute. And after that, this is also satisfied. I also want to execute this one. Right? So I want like that. So that time what we do, so we should not take else if. Keep all the if statements one after other, right? So that if this is satisfied or not satisfied, still system will check for this. Still, if this is satisfied or not satisfied, it will also check this. And previously, however, we are expecting, you'll see that result. Right now, if you execute, you'll be seeing both this one and this one both will be executed. Right? So this we call as if series, right? So when you have a requirement, after checking one of the if condition, whether that is satisfied or not satisfied, you want to check the next condition also. In those kind of situations, so we use this if series. We keep all if statements one after other. Okay. So one of the next example, nested if. That means inside one if condition, we can keep again one more if condition and check. So not only if else, if all those things you can use. Okay, just for our understanding sake, the possibility inside if condition, we can also add one more if condition. Right? Now, if you see first, this will be executed. Later, this is also satisfied. This will also be executed. Right? So execute. This is also executed. Right? So like that. Okay. So this is not the flavor. So that's it. So we are done with understanding these conditional statements using this. Okay, so if you see, if you observe here, for all these conditional statements, the conditions, whatever we take, so based on this relational operators, right? Here, whatever the expressions we discussed, we can also add multiple conditions, right? So even if you want to add this complex condition, we can add, right? So we add that here, right? So all those things are there. We use those complex conditions also inside this if, all these things. So all these are interrelated, right? So we discussed about relational operators, which returns true or false. If we have multiple conditions, we combine using these logical operators and or not. All these conditions where we use in these conditional statements. Okay, select that. Okay, the next one about looping. So any questions so far? Okay, the looping statements. If you want to execute the same set of statements repeatedly again and again. So let's say there are 5 statements. You want to execute those statements 10 times. There is a situation where, as per the requirement, we need to execute the same statement 10 times. So in those kind of situations, we consider using this looping statements. We have different loops Okay, so let me list out those things and discuss. First one, while loop. Next one, do while loop. And next, for loop. Okay. And also in the for loop, there are two flavors. Okay. Index based for loop, and there is a concept called for each loop. Yeah, I'll explain. So out of these, most of the times we use for loop. Okay. Out of this, when we start working for the requirements, most of the times we use the for each loop. Okay, so but we should know everything. So slowly, if you know all these things, when we start working, we can easily understand. Okay, so first we deal with the while loop. So how this while loop works. Okay, so first we need to know how many times the loop should execute. It can be the number of times, or there can be a condition where you check the condition until that condition satisfied, keep on, the logic should be executed. So that time we deal with the while loop. So here, let's say, as a syntax, how people say initialization. That means there is a loop variable. So what is the default value we want to keep? And after that, we start the while. Here we give condition. The condition is satisfied. It enters inside. It executes some logic, and make sure that you add a increment or decrement operator. So like this. Okay, let me write it and show you how exactly it will work. Okay, so I'm defining one of the loop variable. Okay, let's say I want to execute my loop for 10 times. Okay, the most of the times the loop variables we take as integer, right? Integer, so 1, 2, 3, 4, like that we want. Okay, mostly the loop variables you see people giving like I, J, K, L. Let's say there is a loop, we are using I. Inside that there is a inner loop. So for that we give the variable name as J. Inside that again one more inner loop, K, like that. Okay, so that's the standard in general. Most of the programming languages, when we deal with the loops, people start the variable names starting with I, J, K, L, like that. Okay, so I'm also using the same standard. It's not that we should not give any other name. Instead of I, if you want to give other name, that will also work. Okay, but mostly 90%, 99% you see like this only. That's why I'm following this naming convention. So I'm giving the name as I, and by default I'm keeping the value as 0. So why we start with 0? Why not 1? Okay, so going forward, we have a concept of collections where there can be 10 values storing in a same variable, right? Let's say there is a list having 10 values. The thing is, the elements, there is a concept called indexing. It starts from 0. Okay, mostly, since we need to deal with those kind of things, you see mostly people starting the value from 0, not from 1. Okay, when we discuss that topic, that time you will understand. So how exactly the collection, and so why it will start with 0, all those things. So for now, so this is the initialization. I is equal to 0. So while here we give the condition. So I'm giving the condition I less than 10. until I less than 10, it keep on enter inside and execute, right? So keep some logic. Maybe I'm just printing the value, right? I'm just printing the I value. Let's say if you forget to add this increment or decrement operator, what will happen? That means if you are not doing anything to this variable, this condition will never fail, and it will try to execute this loop for infinite. Infinite times execution is not supported, right? So in Salesforce we have governor limits. Means so basically Salesforce is multi-tenant. That means whatever the company we work, right? Already we know about this as part of the administration. So when you work for a client, so client is having the Salesforce account, and that we need to log in and work. So when they register, the clients, the company, so they get the space in one of the Salesforce server, right? So this particular account, what I opened, is having space in AP27 server. In the same server, there are many other companies' information also present, right? If you introduce some infinite loop and some bad logic, it keep burden on this server. The other companies who is having space in the server, they will also suffer due to our mistake. To avoid those things, for each company who is having space in this server, they are enforcing some upper limits. So those we call as downer limits. It's not that it will allow to execute infinite times. So you might see some errors like CPU timeout, something like that, right? For code execution, Salesforce allocate a maximum time. Within that time, if the execution is not completed, it will throw error saying that the limit is exceeded. So these kind of things we have to understand. So that's the reason we have to follow the best approaches when we do the development. It's not like Java or .NET. Okay, so when compared to those here, so we also need to think about the upper limits what we have. So based on that only, we have to plan and develop the code properly. If you see system.limit exception, CPU time limit exceeded, right? So if you see how much log is generated, 17.59 MB of log. If you see for other executions, those are only in the KB, right? So if you open this log, I'm just opening. It's a huge log. If you see 17.59 MB, that much log is generated. Okay, just I want to show you. So what is the maximum time? So it is allowed, and how much it is exceeded. So for each log, whatever system generates whenever we execute the code, at the bottom, Salesforce, they also show the limits. Okay, so let me scroll down to completely down. If you see, right, CPU time, right? So here 10,000 means 10,000 milliseconds is equal to 10 seconds. Okay, so the maximum allowed limit is 10 seconds. But if you see, it took 15 seconds to execute the code, and due to that, the code execution failed. Okay, so that's why it's very dangerous if you don't write the code. At some point of time, the condition should not be satisfied and it should exit the loop. So that way we have to plan. Here, if you increment the I value by 1 every time, then we won't face such kind of problem. Okay, I'm just giving I plus plus. I'm using unary operator. You know how this will work. The meaning of this one is I is equal to I plus 1. Initially, I is equal to 0, 0 less than 10 s. You can thus here print 0. Now 0 will be incremented by 1. Now I becomes 1, 1 less than 10 s. It will print it and it will increment 1, 1 plus 1, 2. Right? Keep on, it will increment. Once I value becomes 10, 10 less than 10, it fails. Okay? It will exit the loop. That's what will happen. Okay, now if I execute, you see it will be printing from 0 to 9. If you see, you are seeing 0 to 9. Okay, that's about the while loop. Yeah, this is one of the examples. So do while loop, how the do while loop works. Okay, so let me modify this same thing. The syntax of the do while is this while condition, whatever we are giving in that place, we use do, and at the end we keep the while condition. So now, what is the difference when compared to while? So what is the difference? The do while here, irrespective of the whether the condition is satisfied or not satisfied, it execute all the statements present in this for one time. Okay, later it will check for the condition. So for sure, one time you want to execute all the statements, and later if you want to check for some conditions, that time we go with the do while loop. Okay, so for example, as it is, if I execute for while loop, whatever the result we got, same thing you see here. Okay, let me execute. Zero to 9, and there is no change, right? So when we can find the change, I'm giving I value as 100, right? And what it will do, without checking any condition, it will print 100, and it will make that 100 value as 101. 101 less than 10, no. Next time it won't execute. It will exit the loop. So that means even though, right, so the condition is not satisfied, one time all the statements will be executed. Right, 100 it is printed. That's the do while loop. But while loop, it won't work like that, right? If the condition is not satisfied, it won't execute even one time also. Okay, again, if you want to test it, okay, now I'm making this as 100, 100 less than 10, no, right? It won't execute anything. You don't see anything printing, right? So like that. Okay, that's a do while loop. The next one, for loop, right? So this we'll discuss after a few minutes break. Okay, and I continue with the next examples.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so now we need to understand about the for loop. So now we know how the while loop and the do while loop works. So for loop, there are two flavors. One is index-based for loop. So let's see one of the example for this. So for this, so once you go here for So directly inside here only we give everything. At initializing the loop variable, initialization, condition, increment or decrement, all those things we do here only. Right? Initialization means we initialize the loop variable integer equal to 0. So I'm giving this condition. So what is the condition you want to keep? I less than 10. Right? So after this, I plus plus. Okay. So like this. Now, how exactly this will work? I'll show you. First, for now, I'm printing that I value. So first, this will execute only one time. Okay. And after that, it will check for this condition. And 0 less than 10. If that is satisfied, it will execute this. And it will increment the value by 1. And after that, again, it will check 1 is less than 10. Satisfied, it will execute and it will increment like that. So like that, this will execute, right? So first, this is only one time. And first check for the condition. The condition is true, it will enter and it will execute. And after that, it will check this, it will increment. And after that, again, it will check. That is satisfied, again, it will execute this, right? This part will be executed multiple times until the condition is satisfied. This part will be executed only one time. So like that. Okay. So just understand. Now you see it is printing from 0 to 9. Click on debug only. 0 to 9. This is the example of the index based for loop. So we have for each loop. So mainly we use for each loop when we deal with the collections. So that is one of our next topic. Okay. So for now, maybe right for now, don't bother about the syntax. Okay. So as part of the upcoming topic collections, we discuss more about that. Just to give the demo, I'm taking some freedom here to define. Okay. For now, if you don't know the syntax, it is fine. Okay. So in general, when we define integer, right? How many values we can store? Only one value if you define one variable, right? So if you want to store multiple values in same place, that time we use a collection, one of the collection type list. For now, don't bother about the syntax. Okay. So I'm just defining the collection with few values. Let's say I'm giving 100, 400, 500. Okay, this is a collection having 3 numbers. Okay, so now this is the name of the collection. So how we iterate? Okay, so by using for each, the approach for that is for right side. What is the name of the collection? This is the name. Left side, what is the data type of this collection? It is integer. An integer and some variable name, whatever you feel. So this is the list, the collection. Left side, what is the data type of collection? That data type, and here this name can be anything, whatever you feel as a developer. I'm just giving as now. If you give like this, what will happen? In this collection, there are 3 values. First time in the iteration, the value of this num is 100. Second time in the iteration, 400. Third time, 500. After that, there are no elements. will stop the for loop, right? So like that. Just understand it will stop the for loop that time. Okay, so just understand that one. Okay, now, so let me also print it so that we'll understand every time what is the value of the this variable, right? So let's execute and see. Here I'm keeping. So maybe if you want to auto align this code, highlight the code, press shift to tab. Okay, so it will highlight most of the times. Here I think I'm giving these brackets. It is nothing. Anyway, so for now let's execute. So click on debug only if you see 100, 400, 500. So it is iterating over each and every element in the collection, and we are getting those results. So this is the example. So this how it will work. One of the upcoming concept called collection. That time you will know. So what is the syntax and how we deal with that. Okay. So that's it. This is about this for loop. The next one, input and output statements. For now, I cannot explain more on this. So we need to have the UI. Okay. This part to understand more. So when we have web page, and from web page when we try to interact with this Apex code, so that time you get more understanding on how this will work. So for now, in the development perspective, okay, so we have few keywords. Get. Okay, so basically we use get for output purpose, the set for input purpose. Okay, so mostly when we have the UI, means there is a web form. Let's say here I entered some value. If you want to assign this value into a variable, okay, so we need to allow variable to define as set. Let's say already in our Apex code we have a variable. We want to refer that on the UI, this web page. That time we have to mark that variable as get so that it will be allowed to use as output on the web page. So for those situations, we use this one. For now, just understand as a developer, if you see get somewhere, understand they're using get means they're reading the information. Set means setting some value into the variable like that. Okay. So with this, we are done with understanding these these Apex statements. So different categories. Okay. So any questions? So far, any questions? Okay. So now we know what are the different types of statements we can write in a program. Okay. So let me show you a few programs, and we should know by seeing that what is the code, so why they are writing those programs and all those things. I'm opening one of my website. Go to this interview questions. So I'm going to show few programs. Yeah, I'm showing this. So let me show this one. So Fibonacci series based on the number. So if you see here, for now, so no need to bother about this, how the program is starting. So our next concept is to know how program starts, what are the different things you see in a program. For now, so the statements inside the program, these things we discussed. Right? Now, what is the purpose of this? This is a memory statement, right? They are defining a string variable and assigning the default value And also they are defining integer, total 3 values they are defining, and the default values 0, 1, 0 like they are giving. And if you see, this is the index based for loop, right? So let's say if the number value is 10, right, until I is less than 10, it enters inside. Okay, so what it is doing, so they are adding 0 plus 1 and keeping in one of the variable, and exchanging f1 value with f2 and f2 value with the next number. If you see, these are like right, arithmetic operators, assignment operator. If you see arithmetic assignment operator, that's equal to means Fibonacci series is equal to Fibonacci series plus the keeping comma plus this value, right? So like that. So like that. Okay, so they are appending all these things. Okay, so whatever, so we wrote same things, right? Here memory statement, here loop, here some arithmetic operations we are doing, arithmetic assignment. So we can understand. Let me open one more. Okay? So in this example, there is a variable, right, memory statement, and this time the conditional statement, right? If so, they have two conditions, right? Logical operator. If any one of the condition meets, they are assigning the value of this variable to true, right? So here they are using the conditional statement. One more example, right? So maybe they are adding and they are swapping the numbers. Yes, so now, so a value, b value. So you know about this to print in the debug. Okay, so now we have some understanding when we see any program, at least by seeing the statements inside the program, we can understand why they are writing. Right? Now, next page. So what about this? Right? That is inside this. Inside this. So what is that? How we start the program? In that, what is this? Those things we need to understand. So for that, the next concept is understanding the OOPS concepts. Okay, so object-oriented programming concepts. So similar to Java, .NET, C++, all these are the languages based on the OOPS concepts, object-oriented programming. Salesforce and Salesforce Apex language also supports the OOPS concepts. It's also based on that. So that's why people say it is similar to core Java, but it is not Java, right? This is a different language called Apex. Okay, it might looks similar to the syntax of the Java because it is also based on the OOPS concepts. Okay, now let me list out the different concepts, and slowly we try to understand and start writing the program. Okay, so first I list out the concepts. We have encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. These are the different OOPS concepts: encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance. So what exactly is this? Okay, let's understand. So before we understand, so what I do, So assume that we have a program. Right? For now, we don't know how to start the program. Okay? In general, the body of the program we keep inside the curly bracket. This is the body. So if you take any program, mainly what are the different elements we see? Okay, mostly the data. Right? In the program, we store some data, input data or output data, and to apply the logic on that data, we write some actions. Right? We need to write some actions to apply the logic on the data and give some results. Right? So mostly in a program, you see the data and actions. This data, right, by defining variables, right? We define variables, and through variables we hold the data. So action means the logic, which type of logic you want to apply on the data, right? So technically, when we deal with the object-oriented programming concepts, so the actions technically we call as methods. Method means method can hold multiple statements. Whenever we want, we can call the method and execute those statements. You can call the method any number of times and execute. Right? So, for example, I'm supplying two numbers, number 1 and number 2. With those two numbers, what you want to do? Let's say I'm defining few actions: add, subtract, multiply. So, which action you call, that logic it apply and gives the result based on that. Right? So, the logic for addition we write in one method. The logic for subtraction we write in some other method, like that. And whenever you want to add, call that add method. Whenever you want to subtract, call the subtract method, like that. Right? So now just I'm trying to explain. So these are the different elements in a program. Okay, when I say elements, can be the data, like the variables or methods. Okay. Now here encapsulation. So encapsulation means it binds the, right. It binds. Encapsulation means it binds the elements of the program together in a single unit. Meaning, so if you see here, this is the body. Inside that we have the variables, methods, and many other things going forward. All these are the elements. All these things where we are keeping inside a body. So for this, so what is this? So to start, before that body, we need to give that name. So here the starting point of the program, we decide using this encapsulation. Okay, so it can bind elements together into a program that we call as encapsulation. Okay, so here as part of the encapsulation, we have class and interface. Okay, so what will happen when we start writing any program? The program should either start with class or interface. So there is no way to start the class without either class or interface. Okay, so in the first line, we need to use the keyword called class to start the program. Okay, inside that, you will see different elements. Okay, since this class or interface, it's binding different elements together as one program. And this we maintain as part of the encapsulation. Okay, so just first we understand about the class first, and after that interface. Okay, so that we'll see what is the use. Okay, first let's see what is class. Okay, so that we'll get some idea. So the class, so class is a plan. Okay, so it is a, class is a plan. That's what we can say. So plan of what? So plan of the things what you want to automate, right? So the real world situations what we face, few things we have to automate. How we automate that plan we write in the class. Okay, so one of the example, let's say, so you want to have a building. Okay, so we have a plan to construct the building. So first what we do, so we need to have the building plan, right? So we need to have the building plan on the paper from one of the engineers, right? So class is also like building plan in the paper. Okay, so but by following that plan, building should be constructed. Right? Here also same thing. So once we create the class, it's not that so nothing will happen. Okay, so once we create the class, the meaning is we planned to do what we need to do, that we plan. All those things we keep in the class. If you want to utilize this and make it work, so we have to create the object. The object is like the physical construction of the building. The physical construction of the building is the object what we create for the class. Okay, let's say building is there. We need to operate the building, right? I mean, we need to use, someone should use. We need to open the gate. Maybe let's say there is a lift. We need to operate the lift. Based on our instructions only, it will work and we'll utilize them. Right? In the same way, once we create the object for the class, with that object, we need to perform the instructions. Whatever the instruction you want to do, that we need to do so that it will work. So it's like automating the real world, whatever we do, those things. So this OOPS concepts, based on this, if you follow, it will be easy to automate. That's why, so these are there. So maybe one more example. Let's say a car, right? The car plan, that maybe it can be on the paper or maybe in the computer. The car plan is like a class. But based on the car plan, the car will be manufactured, right? So there can be multiple cars, right? With the same plan, company will manufacture hundreds of cars. Here also, we create a class, for that we can create multiple objects. So once we have the car, we need to operate, right? Without we operate, it cannot do anything. We have to open the door, start the car, do the acceleration, apply the brake. So all those are actions. Here also, so we create the object for the class, and through that object we need to do all those actions. Same thing, whatever I am talking, right? The car example, that we can create as a class. And, okay, so it's like that. So just try to understand. Once we start creating the class, you will know how it works. Okay, for now, just understand class is nothing but a plan. So what we want to do, all those things we define in the class. For example, when car is manufactured, so they add the features, right? Let's say car should have AC or not. So maybe, so what should be the so maybe CC, or it should be a diesel car, or it should be a petrol car or electric car. So based on that, so what they provide in the car, those will vary, right? Same way, so when we start creating the class, we decide which features we want to offer based on the requirement. And after creating the class, we create the object, and whatever the features available in the class that we can call and utilize. If I write the program, I think you can understand. Okay. Now, before we start writing the program, we have one more concept called abstraction, right? So abstraction means the visibility of the elements. Okay, so maybe on day-to-day example, so when you take car, we don't see everything, whatever is there in the car outside, right? We see what we require. For example, we don't see the car engine or internally how it functions, those things outside, right? So few things based on the need we need to show, few things we need to completely hide it. So how we exactly want to control visibility, so that will be maintained using abstraction. Okay, so what I can say, it deals with the visibility of the elements in a program. Okay, so when I say variable and when I say method, so where exactly you want to, who can access that variable, right? So those kind of visibility things we can control using the abstraction. Okay, so for controlling this, so we have access modifiers. Okay, so we have private, we have protected, we have public, and we have global. Okay, so these are the different access modifiers. So private means, so when we define the class, so private means the visibility only within that class. Outside that class, there is no visibility, right? So that's like the private. Okay, so within the class, within the same class, I can say visibility within the same class. And the protected means not only in the same class, in the related classes also, right? Visibility within the same class, also the related classes. That is protected. Okay. Public means visibility from any class to any class within the, from any class to any class within the Salesforce organization. That is public. Global means visibility from not only within the same Salesforce organization, right? Visibility even outside the Salesforce organization. So that time it deals with the global. Okay, so like that. Okay, so maybe maybe one example. So let's say So there is a gated community, okay, and that there are hundreds of apartments. Let's say we have one of the, let's say have a flat in the apartment. Right? So it's like a, assume that the one apartment, right? This flat is like one class. So who can enter into this flat? Whoever is the members, whoever is the family, whoever is staying, only they can enter into this flat and they can access the facility, right? So that's like a, so, and also while accessing, so there are some private areas here. Okay, so let's say bedroom and a few places only the family members they can access. So that's the private. Protected means visibility within the same class and also related classes. So let's say there are some neighbors or there are some friends, relatives. So when they visit the house, they can maybe enter into hall and some areas and they can spend time. But so maybe they cannot maybe allowed to enter into the bedrooms and all those things. Right? So that means they have some restriction until only accessing, right, some part of the area. Yeah, so on day to day also we are seeing such kind of things, right? So only to the family members, for relatives, some access will be there. So that is protected. When you say protected, relatives also they can come and they can access some area. So public means in this gated community, let's say there is a gym or there are some common areas. So any person who is staying in one of the apartment in this gated community, so they can visit the gym and they can use the facility. Right? That is a public place. Right? This gym is a public place. Anyone in that gated community they can visit and they can do the gym. Right? So global means it's like public. Right? So maybe just for you to just show you. Okay, this is like a private, maybe hall in the flat is like protected. Some friends and those things, those guys only can visit. So this is a public. Anyone in that community they can access. Let's say in that community there is a shopping mall. Okay, so let's say they are allowing any people, even not only who are part of that community, even outside public also, people also can visit the shopping mall and they can access that. Right. So not only that gated community, some other gated community or someone else outside people also they can come and access this. Okay? This is like global, anyone can enter. Okay, so like that, right? So we have, okay. So just understand that, okay. So here, this gated community is like our Salesforce arc. This is our Salesforce arc, right? Within our Salesforce account, public means from any class to any class. Global means, let's say there is a requirement to show our code to the Java platform. There is a need of integration. The other platform, Java team, they want to access the code which we write in the Salesforce organization. At that time, we have to give the global visibility. Okay, so like that. So using these things, we control. So which we show, which we don't want to show, those things. Okay, so that's the abstraction. I think with this we are ready to start creating a program. Maybe still if you have some confusion, let me give one more example. We see the, let's say TV, right? On day to day we use TV. TV, so inside TV there are many elements, right? Maybe picture tube and for audio, some device. So maybe there are many elements inside the TV. But finally we see everything as one unit, right? So everything they combine and keep inside one panel. And we see that as one single unit. That's like a class. Class, TV is like a class. There are many elements in the TV. Class also same thing. You see many different types of elements. And also TV, for sure we should see the screen. Few things no need to show outside. Let's say the motherboard and some things inside that we don't bother to see. Those things only if you open the TV you can see, right? Only inside that TV only those things are there. Those are like private, right? So few things to maybe to connect your maybe your computer to TV or something. You see some plugs backside of the TV, something, right? So they're designing. So what should not be completely shown? What so they have to show to access the feature. They are controlling, right? That controlling part we do through this abstraction. Okay, so it's like that. Okay, so once we start writing the program, all these things, even though you don't know, still we can work. Just to give some idea of how exactly just I'm explaining this. Okay, now with this, let's start creating a class. Okay, we'll create a simple class and see how it works. You can automate any real world things. Okay, so using this Apex programming, okay, using the OOPS concepts. So once we log in, there are different places where you can create. Okay, first I want to create the class. So once we log in, you can click on setup so that you will see this setup. From left side, search for Apex class. Okay, this is one of the place we can create the Apex class and start doing the program. Or the other place, already we know, click on this and developer console, this is the one. Here also you can create the class. It's up to you. So which place, which tool you want to use, it's up to you. Right? So the functionality is important. Right? Again, people are asking, if I create a class with the developer console, will that be available when I open here? Yes, it will be available. Right? If you create here, will it be available here? Yes, it will be available. Right? So ultimately, all the classes what we create stores in one of the database table called Apex class. Okay, it's up to you from where you want to create. Okay, either these are some tools. Either this is one place where Salesforce is allowing to create the class. This is one place where Salesforce is allowing to create the class. Ultimately, the class, whatever will store after creating, it will store into one of the database table called Apex class. Okay, so not only these two options, there are some tools. If you see this tool, whatever I'm using is Visual Studio Code, which is from Microsoft, which is open source. From this also you can create the class and connect this tool with Salesforce and deploy this. That is also possible. I'll show all these things. Okay, so first we create here and understand, and a few classes we create here and understand how we deal. Later I'll also show you how we install this VS Code and connect this code with connect this VS Code with our Salesforce organization. So all those things we'll see with the progress. Okay. So for now, so our first class. So maybe let's create here. So if you are not seeing setup, click on setup, and once you see the setup, left side search for Apex classes. From here you can create new, and then you can create the class. So which functionality you want to automate? Okay, that we need to think as per the requirement. So let's say we do calculations day to day, right? So let's say we need to add few numbers or subtract or multiply. Instead of doing manually, do you want to automate? All we do, we develop a web page and enter numbers and submit, so that it will add or whatever the calculation you apply should give the result. So we can automate all those things here in this program. Okay, for now, what I'll do for the first example. So we have rectangle shape, right? So let's say there is a rectangle shape, and for rectangle length, the length of the rectangle and the breadth of the rectangle. Okay, if you know automatically, so let's say a client is expecting to calculate the area of the rectangle, or maybe the perimeter of the rectangle. Okay, let's say maybe one more example on day to day, you know, BMI, right? Body mass index. How that will be calculated? If you know one of the person's height and weight, the BMI will be automatically calculated, right? That value should be based on the age, based on the gender. So whatever the expected range is there or not, they'll compare and they'll suggest something is not matching, right? So how we do that? All those things we can automate. Okay. So for now, let's say we are developing the class by providing the features to do calculations about the rectangle. If someone provides the area and the perimeter of the rectangle, we provide the features to calculate the area and calculate the perimeter of the rectangle. So for that we are planning, right? This is planning, right? So now to start any program, right? The program should start with either class or interface. For now we are dealing with the class and the body of the program, right? In the curly bracket inside that. So this is the body. Inside that we write the different elements of the program. So now it's not that we create only one class, right? Let's say in future there is a requirement to calculate the area of the circle or area of the square. At that time, same class won't work, right? That is a different object, and the calculations for that we need to do separately. So for each maybe each of those requirements, we might create multiple classes. So that's why we create many classes, and how we recognize which class is for what. So that's why we have to give the unique name. Whenever we create any Apex class, we have to give one of the unique name, right, for that class. So for example, there is a gated community. There are 100 flats. If you don't give any number per flat, it's very, very difficult, right? It's almost not possible to know where a particular family is staying. So the name will be given for each and every flat so that we can easily understand, right? Here also same thing. Okay, so I'm just giving the name as rectangle. Okay, and I'm saving. Okay, so when we save, what will happen? System will try to check for the syntax, right? Only if the syntax is correct, it will allow to save. Otherwise, the code won't be saved. So we call as a compilation. Compile means it will verify the syntax. If the syntax is not correct, it displays the error. Now we are seeing the error, right? So that means as per the syntax, whatever we wrote is wrong. Compilation error. So if you have compilation error, that means your code is not going to save. Tomorrow, let's say if you want to stop here and come back tomorrow, since this is not saved, again you need to start from beginning. Right? At least you need to save this in some notepad, and tomorrow paste it and try to resolve and continue. Right? So now the problem here, the top level type must have public or global visibility. Right? So that's the point. Right? So again, if you take this example of this gated community, right? So, or maybe this flat. The thing is, at least the family members, relatives, even public, maybe delivery boys and all those guys, they can reach this flat, right? They should know that this is there, right? So everyone should be able to access. Okay, so the visibility, when we start creating the class, the top level class should have the visibility of either public or global. It is not allowed to make the class as either private or protected. The thing is, if you don't mention anything, the default visibility is private. Okay, so to see out of all these things, this is default. When you define a class or variable or method, if you don't mention anything, by default system takes as private. Okay, but the top level class what we create should be like public or global, any one of them. Okay, then only system will allow. Now here we have two new points. Okay, one point. So I want to keep the comment, right? As a developer, you can write some comments while writing the code. Slash. After that, whatever you give, system won't check for the syntax, right? So this here you can type anything whatever you want. System won't verify the syntax because this is commented. So one more point. By default, if you don't mention anything, the default access modifier is private, right? Default access modifier is private. Okay, if you define a class or variable or method, and if you don't mention any access modifier, system will by default take as private. And also here, like this multiple lines we are writing, right? We also have multi-line commenting. You can start with the slash star slash. In between, you can type whatever you want. Even multiple lines also you can type, right? So this is this one and this one, multi-line commenting, right? Inside that, it can be anything what you want. This star or hyphen or whatever you want to give here, it's up to you, right? I mean, just for styling, I'm adding like this. Important thing is this one, starting, star slash ending. In between, you can type whatever you want, like that. Okay, now this is the class, right? So nothing is mandatory, right? So if you don't keep anything, so nothing will be there, right? So as per the requirement, we add the different contents and so we'll provide the features. Let's say one of the building is constructed with only the pillars and some walls. Nothing is there inside, right? That is possible. If nothing is there, we cannot do anything. Just we can enter, that's it. But if you want to keep something, so we need to construct it as per the plan, then only those things we can use. Here also same thing. We created a class, but nothing is there. Based on the requirement, we add some of the features so that we can start using this and utilize to get some of the calculations. Since we don't have time, we'll see this in our next session. Okay. So I recommend you to just go through all these things before the next session. The next session, tomorrow is Sunday. So Monday also, I'm not taking the session. Okay. So before to development, we completed admin. So if you have something is pending, maybe you can practice on Monday. If you are joining newly, some of you, if you are joining newly, and I told that you need to know a few basics of the Salesforce admin, right? So I at least recommend you to watch all the demo videos of the admin. If needed, ping me. I'll share few videos to understand few concepts which will be useful for the development. Okay, so for you, you can utilize Sunday and Monday. Our next class is on 29th. Okay, 29th. So any questions before any?
Yeah, Srinivas, I have.
Bro?
Yeah,
Yeah. Hi, bro. Is it possible to change the default value from private to public?
the default value is
Hello.
hello. Yes.
Yeah, it was already predefined by the system, right?
Okay, okay. So yeah, that behavior is not by default. Whenever you define any class, variable, or anything, it is private. You cannot. Okay,
Okay, fine. Thank you.
behavior will be. Yeah. So any other questions? So we are done with the demo. Okay. Some of you, if you are joining newly, so the next regular sessions we are starting from 29th March. Okay.
Srinivas, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you got an error, right? It says line 1, column 7 or 9. How you know what column? Like, how do you verify the columns?
Yeah. So few errors, right? Might not be exactly we know which column exactly it is giving. Okay. So we cannot say that always it will give the exact location of the error. So where it is. Okay. So now if you see here, I gave 90, right? So this is not the proper syntax. At line number 6, column number 5, right? There are spaces also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right here, it is finding some unnecessary character, right? I mean,
Okay.
finding the column thing if the statement is very big. Okay, so all I can suggest, we have some tools here. Paste your code, and if you keep, I think it will also show the column. If you see here, where I kept the cursor, right? Column 5. Maybe if you use this kind of tools, that is easy for us to detect. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe directly in the browser, if you use, we don't know, right? It won't. I think here also it is showing. Here it is showing. Okay. Maybe you need to look into this. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So we'll continue on from Tuesday. Okay. I'll share this to your email. Okay. Thank you.